Your doctor is dumbing down your kids. By that, of course, I mean diabetes that is out of control based on your doctor's bad advice can literally dumb down your kids. It turns out that many studies show that high blood sugar and high A1C and even just lots of blood sugar fluctuations can have a huge impact on the developing brain, and I mean in a bad way. Of course, we all know about how low blood sugar can make it so, you're not you're sort of impaired in the moment, right? But long term, what's going to have a huge impact on your brain development, especially as a kid, is high blood sugar. And you need to avoid that. Of course, I've already talked about how nerve damage can happen due to high blood sugar, and that matters too because your brain's basically made of nerves. But get this, there are also studies showing that just the growth, the development of your brain is severely impacted by high blood sugar. Specifically, your white matter, which is basically what helps transfer information through your brain. There was a study that showed that white matter in the cortical region of the brain, your cerebral cortex, your cerebellum, which is responsible for thinking, for perceiving, for understanding the world, the most complex part of the human brain, what makes us human. The white matter in that part of the brain is shown to be severely impacted, reduced by high blood sugars. When they compare normal children to diabetic children, and these diabetic children have had an average A1C of 8, which, by the way, the average for kids now is higher than that, but their average A1C was around 8, right? When they compare healthy children to diabetic children, they find that their growth longitudinally for white matter in the cerebellum and the cortex is much less, significantly less than their healthy peers. That means it's literally dumbing them down. They're not able to think as well. They're not able to perceive as well. White matter is also associated with memory, so they're not able to remember as well. It is literally dumbing down your kids. I know from personal experience myself, I've had diabetes since I was 11, and I can tell you, my memory for that whole part of my childhood is a blur. My blood sugars are out of control, and honestly, if you could look back and say, hey, you remember your childhood friend Danny or whatever, I'd probably go, I don't know. I don't remember most of my childhood, literally. And I think the fact that I had blood sugars may have had something to do with that, and I bet a lot of other diabetics would understand that. Well, the science shows it. The science shows that your white matter is literally impacted very negatively. The growth is slowed down. The growth is majorly reduced by high blood sugars and by those high blood sugar fluctuations. You can even see the short-term complications of high blood sugar yourself. You might notice that when your blood sugar is higher than it should be, that you might have a headache, you're tired, you can't focus, you can't remember quite as easily, you can't think quite as clearly. Of course, the same thing might happen when you're low, but it happens when you're high too. You might not notice that right now if your blood sugar is high all the time, but if you get your blood sugar normalized and you have a bad day and you have your high blood sugar, you'll definitely notice those kind of issues. And if that's happening when your blood sugar is just high for a little bit, imagine what the cumulative effects are. It is a big deal. The only way to avoid this is with normal blood sugars. Normal blood sugars just like non-diabetics have. And I have other studies that show this too. I have studies from elderly patients. Of course, they're not kids, but in elderly patients, higher A1C also was associated with more brain shrinkage. So maybe your kids' brains aren't shrinking, but certainly if the kind of development that is resulting in more brain shrinking in adults, that probably isn't good for kids, right? And there's even more. It turns out that even just the surface curvature of your cortex is negatively impacted by high blood sugars when you're a kid. You know what surface curvature is, right? The curves of your brain that help make more surface area, that help make more neurons, that help make a more developed and more powerful brain are impacted negatively by high blood sugar. You ever heard of smooth brain before? Yeah, literally dumbing you down. You need to get this blood sugar under control, and especially if you have a kid or you are a kid right now, you need to get your blood sugar in control. If you don't, You might have improper brain development, and it might have a huge impact on your memory. It might have a huge impact on your perception, on your ability to think clearly, on your ability to perceive and logically deduce things. You don't want that to happen. So please, get those normal blood sugars. Get that blood sugar down to not just what doctors recommend as a normal level, which, by the way, a lot of goals actually have it at 8 now, which is what these kids in the study were at that had abnormal brain growth. Don't have it at those levels. Instead, you want to actually normal, non-diabetic A1C, an A1C of about 5.0. If you can achieve that, or even lower ideally, then you can avoid these kind of complications completely. You can avoid the abnormal brain development of your child. Your child won't have less white matter than his peers. But in order to do so, you need to have those normal blood sugars, and you need to avoid those fluctuations as much as possible. That's all, everyone. Make sure your doctor isn't going to dumb down your kids with bad health advice. Make sure diabetes is going to have an impact on your mental health or on your life like that. You can't avoid these kind of complications completely. All you need is normal blood sugars. And if you're not sure how to achieve them, you should watch my series, 3 Keys to Taming Type 1, or you can also hit me up for coaching. I do one-on-one coaching as well. That's all for now. If you like this video, if you like the fact that I'm bringing you the facts on diabetes, even the ones you might not want to hear, be sure to like this video, be sure to share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe and like my page. That's all for now. Keep taming that type 1, everyone, and remember, you deserve a healthy, normal brain just like everyone else, and you can achieve it with normal, non-diabetic blood sugars.